Just ask questions.
Hi, what's your name?
John Stevens.
How old are you?
40.
Okay, that's cool. Did you ever want to go?
Oh, come on. Just ask the
I'm
question.
bad at this.
Yeah, your camera fell
No,
over.
my camera.
That's because you hid your face there, yeah. Okay.
Stop being mean to me. Okay. Did you ever have a supportive teacher? And if so,
Yeah.
who were they? How did they support you?
Miss Butcher was really awesome. She was a history teacher at Moore High School. And then my 8th grade history teacher, actually, Mr. Higgins or Hitchens, he submitted my name to the Daughters of the American Revolution, which as an adult I've learned is actually a incredibly racist society whose goal is to perpetuate the notion that the South was right and the North was wrong. Learned that as an adult. But as a kid, I thought it was a really cool accolade that I got. They were a historical society, and he submitted my name. I bet he didn't know any better. But yeah, he really endeared me to history. So yeah, lots of cool teachers that did that. And my AP history teacher from high school, she would actually let me talk and give my perspective in class, lecture for what I thought.
What? Burial does that? Yeah.
Yeah. What I thought the historical context was. So yeah, I had a few.
Oh, nice. On that note, I just forgot my question. That's great. Do you think education defines the American dream?
No. I think we have a system that is more prioritized towards standard testing to get monetary incentives, that it's more focused on hitting a certain test standard, hence standardized testing, but that is deviated from teaching kids to learn completely. It was kids should learn how to be functional in society, and now it's you must hit these questions on a test, otherwise we don't get funding, which is why we have kids graduating who don't know how to do taxes. They don't know what taxes are. They don't understand how to balance a checkbook. They can't function in society, but by God, they can figure out calculus and answer some random BS.
Trigonometry.
Yeah, so it's not a good system. Other countries invest more in the arts. They teach kids about how to be who they want to be. They teach basics in philosophy, which America completely ignores. The identification of the self is not possible in school, and I think it probably leads to the school shootings and suicide. But that's
our own brutality toward each other.
Yeah, yeah, we see schools kind of like Thunderdome. 2-man enter, 1-man leaves. It's not a good system, but there's no shifting it at this point without a radical shift in the entire country.
True. Do you think that shift will ever come?
Yes, they'll have to. At some point, the system we have is going to fall. We are almost in late stage dystopian collapse. We are hitting a point where our system is deteriorating faster than it can be repaired. And at that point, we will slide backwards. And when we slide backwards, something will have to shift, or we'll have a collapse of the entire country.
Fun. So here's the question for you that I remembered. If you could have any career and it would pay you as much as you wanted, and you would have benefits, time off, PTO, stuff like that, what would you want to be?
I'd probably teach history, because I believe that without learning from the past, we're just going to repeat it. And right now we're repeating McCarthyism, which if you go back further was witch hunts, which if you go back further was the hunt for Christianity, actually, in the term of Rome. Every major term event starts with fear mongering and them focusing on the minority and attacking what is new and different. And the byproduct of that, the hate that comes from it, leads to a more insular society, which we're hitting now with the MAGA BS. MAGAs are overwhelmingly in charge because they are afraid of losing power. So as a product, they consolidate as much as possible And when they consolidate, they're actually loosening because the tighter you hold something, the less you can hold it.
Well, portion law, we're gonna whoo over that. So angry about that law passing.
Yeah, Oklahoma's a little backwards right now.
So, did you think that you were ever limited in life to what you wanted to be or what
Economically,
you wanted to do?
I was limited. I grew up very poor. There were periods of my life I was homeless at some point, and I knew that college wasn't really an option for me. So my best chance was just to work. So I didn't go to school. I just went to work, and as a result, I'm still just working, and I will probably just continue working until I die. And that is limited by my economic standard when I started. There have been studies that have shown that where you start economically determines where you'll end up eventually. You can't excel too far beyond where you started because the money's just not there to get you there. And your goal as an adult is to help your kids get further than you. And I think, yeah, I definitely was limited.
I'm gonna take y'all to Hawaii when I'm making that big doctor money. Do you have any special abilities that you think you wouldn't have been given if you didn't live the life you lived?
I'm an incredibly patient individual.
Yeah, you are.
And I think that is a byproduct of my limited resources growing up. I knew that I couldn't be impatient. I couldn't ask for things. I couldn't demand it because demanding would give me nothing. So I just had to wait. And if you wait long enough, you'll get what you need to survive.
That's awesome. So, what was your dream? What was your goal in life from a kid up to now, and how has it changed?
I just wanted to be a parent.
Oh.
That literally all I wanted as a kid was to be a parent because I didn't have parents. So I wanted to be a parent so I could show some kid what it could be.
Well, now you got 4 kids.
Yeah.
How do you think things would be different if you were born a different race?
Probably a little further back, but also, I recognize white privilege. It is definitely a thing, but there's also a socioeconomic privilege that comes along with monetary status. And while I was born white, I was also born very, very poor. My grandmother raised me with, she had already raised 6 other kids at that point. Yeah, 6 other kids. And so we didn't have a lot of money. So while I was white, economically, my class was much lower. So if I had been born African American, but in a higher financial economic status, it probably would have been about the same. So yeah, there is definitely an effect there, but there is also a little bit of an equalizer based on money, unfortunately.
Money just runs the world.
Yeah, it does.
I'm sorry if I'm making you sad.
You're not. Next question.
Tell me a story about you or someone you know experiencing discrimination based on anything.
I don't know. I can't really think of any. Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, here's a good one. How do you define being a feminist?
Feminist equality, but not necessarily equality in the normal sense. Like when they say equality, they're like, well, equal. But equal isn't necessarily a broad enough statement. Like it doesn't specify what needs to happen. Like you say, oh, women are treated equally. But just their base reaction you have when you see a woman is different than when you see a man. Yeah. And like it goes both ways. Like when you see a guy who's upset, your first reaction is, well, he needs to get over it. Maybe you shake your head, but society as a whole looks at it like a man has to just get over their emotional qualms. But a woman in the same situation, there's more caring reaction and reach out and touch and talk to her and like say, hey, what's wrong? And the same goes back for a woman who's struggling to accomplish something that a guy is doing easily. They're like, oh, well, she just needs to step up. Like it goes back and forth. I think feminism as itself was a vehicle to get us where we are, but going forward, we need to like let go of necessarily some of those tropes and accept that you can't be a feminist, you can't be focused on men, whatever that's called. It needs to be some like misogynist, but that's so hateful. Misogynist has a negative connotation to it, whereas feminist is like empowering, and misogynist is an a-hole. We need to we need a term. We need to, actually need to get rid of this. We need to look at a way to unify and move both sexes forward to where they're actually equal, where the terms don't mean such different hateful things.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, what was your favorite age of your life and why?
I really liked age 30. 30 was a great year for me. I bought a house. Life was pretty good. My career was decent. It was just a happy, good year. And if I go back further than that, around 20 when my son was born was pretty good. And then my 18th, 19th year I graduated was also really nice. They represent different things, different steps in life. And all of them brought to me to here. And each step is happy and each current iteration is happy. So that's all good. Can't say there's any negative real parts of my life.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not on here, but it is a question I wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like the problems that kids face now in like high school with anxiety and different mental health issues is like less of an issue because of you grew up with a lot bigger problems?
I think they're hyper focused right now. I don't know necessarily if the problems are bigger as much as you're reminded of them 24/7. You have social media that gives you nonstop reminders. You have a digital device in your hand that you're constantly absorbed into. You have less of a disconnect from that constant bombardment of, are you good enough? Do you rank in this social hierarchy? As opposed to us, which we had a lot. We had an incredible amount of pressure and stress, but we didn't have it nonstop, 24 hours, all day long, no break. And the ability to disconnect because that thing in your hand is basically gone. Like, how often can you really just put it down for an hour and walk away, read a book, disappear into the woods? You can't. It's with you. That thing has signal everywhere around the world. You could go to the jungles in the middle of the Amazon and still get enough bars to receive some hateful message from someone. Like, it's just a continuous push all the way across. And with that, we're supposed to be getting the world's knowledge. You have access to basically everything anyone has ever learned in the world right now in your hand. You don't use it for that, though. You use it for someone falling down and everyone laughing. Like, it's a tool that could change the world, and it has changed the world, but not necessarily in the way it was intended. And that contributes to the anxiety that you all feel. Hell, I would feel it. I do feel it. So, but
it's like,
yeah, it's a negativity that we will, as a society, have to adapt to. Like, it's an emotional evolution that we have to hit. Right now, we have not achieved it because it's so new, it's so fresh, and it's constantly changing. And if it can stop changing for 5 years, humanity might adapt to it. But right now, we can't.
Fun. That was a great answer. Hi, Sasha. Oh. How do you think your religion within the Bible Belt has affected your life and your interactions with people?
So, at like age 7 or 8, I asked my grandmother if we were Christian. She was like, yeah. I'm like, well, we don't go to church. We don't really talk about God. She's like, yeah, well, we're Christian because God's important. And that spurred me to ask the question. I was like, well, I read all these mythology books. What makes those gods any more important than, or any less important than this God? And she couldn't have an answer. And around 7 or 8, I realized, okay, I don't believe in any of these gods. And as a result of not believing in any of these gods growing up here, I was bullied immensely for having a different belief. Like, face slammed into lockers, ostracized, outcasted. It was like a whole thing in high school. Now it's much more socially acceptable. People will realize, oh, you can have a different belief and it doesn't threaten mine. But then they definitely felt threatened. And when anything feels threatened, it attacks. And that's basically what all the kids, teenagers, and some adults did. They attacked because they felt threatened because their belief is actually incredibly fragile. It's basically believing in an invisible boogeyman who's waving his finger. Well, actually, Sky Daddy. It's believing in Sky Daddy. And Sky Daddy's going to spank you if you don't believe in him. So it's so fragile. It's weak. And it influenced me to just kind of be myself because I wasn't going to find that kind of support.
Nice. Sorry, the letters are really tiny.
No, you're fine.
Oh, what fears do you have when pursuing your goals?
Failure.
I mean,
That's
fair, yeah.
fair. Like if you pursue your goals and you fail, like if I were to pursue a different career, I fail. Monetarily, I'm destitute. I think that's, destitute.
Nice. What's your political affiliation?
So I love this quote. It said, it says, 20 years ago, I was a moderate Democrat, and now, without changing a single viewpoint, I'm an extreme liberal. And I think that is a shifting of America's viewpoint, where it has failed to keep up with the world and the changes the world has seen and ground itself to a halt and unwilling to compromise, change, or adapt. So what are my political views? I would say I'm relatively liberal, but I would like to believe that I'm middle.
Yeah, that's fair. Now here's a strange question. How do you think it would be the best way to fix the corrupt government?
I think about this often.
Same.
The number one thing we could do is overturn the Supreme Court ruling that a corporation is a person. When they decided that a corporation was a person, that person could then contribute financially to a political party or individual. At that point, they could buy a vote. And when they could buy that vote, when they could essentially turn a politician into a NASCAR vehicle and slap their sticker on it, brazenly, openly declare that I support this person. Here's my money, saying that they have my vote and that I control them. At that point, we shifted our government away from for the people and became for the corporation. If we could overturn that decision from the 1970s, 50 years ago, in archaic time, we could then make it illegal for lobbyists to openly buy politicians. We could prevent them from saying, hey, I have a pharmacy, a big pharmaceutical company, I make drugs, and I want you to vote that this drug is this insulin that is life-saving is going to cost $300 a vial.
And you're not going for $1.
When it's sold for $1, exactly. If we could stop politicians from being a commodity and they had to work for the people instead of corporations. That is the one thing. If we change that one thing, then there wouldn't be any money in it. Then politicians would stop running for office to get rich, and they would run for office to help the people. That simple shift would get to where politicians weren't in it to be money. They wouldn't be going into that to make millions. That they'd go into corporations to make millions, and we could have a political field full of people who want to help other people. But as long as they can make money off it, they're not going to, because again, money
corrupts.
Yeah. Yes.
Man, love that money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what part of your identity are you most proud of?
Fatherhood, most likely.
So your relationships?
Yeah, with my kids and with my wife. Because, like, work is work. But if I could die tomorrow and work replace me like that, I would be non-consequential and it wouldn't matter. But if I were...
It would fall apart. We're not going to lie. It's going to fall apart
I'm
so
a
fast.
cog. I'm a cog. And if I were to die, they'd pull my dead cog out and put a new cog in. And maybe that cog Wouldn't have the right number of teeth. Maybe it wouldn't spin quite as quickly, but it would still push the mechanism. But if I were to die tomorrow, it would create a hole for my children and for my wife that couldn't just be filled. It could be eventually, but it wouldn't just be a overnight thing. And that is more important inherently. My life is more important inherently with the familial connections than work or my home status or things like that. What manner?
Cool. Okay, so we got one last question.
Okay.
Tell me one time you felt great pride in something you succeeded at.
Probably Make-A-Wish. With the theater,
Yeah.
we've done Make-A-Wish a lot, and I know we've granted like probably 20 wishes with kids. And I didn't necessarily start the first one, but I okayed it and I helped. And then after she was gone, the person started, I kept going, and we granted one wish that year, and the kid unfortunately died before he got the wish. But all the ones after that, I know they got to go to Disney. Some lived, some didn't. And I know, like, it's probably the best thing I've done in my life. But I don't want to do it anymore because there were a lot of kids that died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo! Okay. Thank you.
Hit stop.